Jack Miller, a Navy SEAL hardened by war and silence, was patrolling the storm-beaten coast of North Carolina when his flashlight caught something drifting in the waves, a small, overturned lifeboat rocking against the rocks. Inside, wrapped in a silver blanket, was a baby girl, barely breathing, and a German shepherd puppy refusing to leave her side. He carried them both to safety, never imagining that this rescue would pull him into a world of smugglers, secrets, and miracles, where faith would be tested and loyalty would shine brighter than the storm. Because sometimes God doesn't send angels with wings. He sends them with paws, courage, and a heart that never gives up. Before we begin, please like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who still believes that miracles walk among us, even in the shape of a faithful dog. The dawn over North Carolina's Outer Banks shimmered like a sheet of glass worn thin by salt and years of wind. The sea was calm, the kind of deceptive calm that came before a storm or a revelation. Jack Miller, 32, walked the creaking pier in his Navy SEAL tactical uniform, the tan fabric damp from mist. He was broad-shouldered, 6 feet tall, the type of man whose presence drew attention, not from loudness, but from gravity. His face carried the sharp geometry of a man shaped by both discipline and loss, square jaw shadowed with a few days' stubble, dark brown eyes that had seen too much and trusted too little. Once, laughter had come easily to him. But since the Afghanistan rescue op 2 years ago, where his best friend had never resurfaced, Jack had learned to save his warmth for the few who truly deserved it. And one of those was walking right beside him. Rex, a 2-year-old German shepherd with a coat the color of dusk, black fading into tan, trotted close at Jack's heel. The dog was lean, powerful, his movements clean as clockwork. To strangers, Rex looked like a weapon, focused, alert, unyielding. But to Jack, he was something else entirely, a reminder that loyalty still existed in a world of orders and loss. Rex had been rescued from a disbanded K-9 program after his handler's death, and like Jack, he wore his grief quietly, with purpose instead of tears. The air smelled of salt, machine oil, and low tide. Jack had took a sip of coffee from his tin flask, grimacing at the bitter taste. "Another quiet morning, partner," he muttered. Rex flicked his ears, but didn't relax. His nose twitched, his hackles lifted slightly. Then, without warning, Rex pulled hard on the leash, barking once, short, sharp, insistent. Jack's instincts snapped awake like a drawn blade. "Easy, boy," he murmured, scanning the marshy edge of the shore. There, beyond a tangle of reeds, something flickered pale beneath the rising mist. Rex lowered his body, muscles taut, and began to move forward. Jack followed, his boots sinking into wet sand as gulls screamed overhead. The morning fog thickened, turning everything into shifting shapes of gray. They reached the edge of the marsh. A small, inflatable dinghy lay overturned, half buried in seaweed. Its motor was broken, one oar floating nearby like a dead limb. Jack's pulse quickened. "Search," he ordered softly. Rex obeyed instantly, leaping onto the hull and sniffing frantically. He pawed at something wedged beneath a broken seat. A waterproof duffel bag, slick with brine. Rex barked, claws scraping. Jack crouched and yanked the zipper open. Inside, wrapped in a silver thermal blanket, was a baby girl, maybe 6 months old. Her lips were blue, her tiny hands limp, but her chest moved. Barely. "Jesus," Jack whispered, adrenaline flooding him. He tore off his jacket and wrapped her tighter, pressing her small body to his chest. The infant stirred weakly, a faint cry trembling in the air. Rex whined beside him, pacing, tail low, but wagging nervously, as if urging Jack to hurry. Jack glanced around. No footprints, no boat tracks leading away. No people. Just silence and the endless hush of the sea. He looked down again. Around the child's wrist gleamed a small silver bracelet engraved with a single name, Lily. "Hang in there, Lily," he murmured, already unclipping his radio. "Coast Guard Station. Bravo. This is SEAL Operative Jack Miller on local patrol. I've got an abandoned vessel and an infant in distress. Repeat, infant in distress. Request immediate medevac coordinates." Only static replied. He tried again. Nothing. The radio crackled faintly, but died. They were too far down the coast, too close to the sandbars, where signal drowned like a whisper underwater. Jack cursed under his breath, scanning the horizon for a better line of sight. Rex stiffened. His ears pricked forward, body angled toward the open water. Jack followed his gaze. Out beyond the shoals, half veiled in fog, floated a speedboat, engines dead, drifting like a ghost. Its hull was dark gray, unmarked, the kind favored by smugglers and fishermen who didn't want questions asked. For a moment, nothing moved. Then a faint red flash blinked near its bow. 3 short bursts, deliberate, patterned. Jack froze. 3 flashes, then darkness. Not random, not a malfunction. It was a covert maritime signal used among smugglers and black route traders to mark a drop zone. Whoever had left this baby wasn't gone. They were watching. He tightened his grip on Lily, feeling her faint heartbeat against his chest. Rex growled low, every muscle alive with tension. "Easy," Jack whispered, eyes narrowing. The fog shifted, and for a heartbeat, Jack thought he saw a silhouette on the drifting boat. A tall man in a dark hood watching through binoculars. But then the muerta swallowed everything whole again. Jack took a step back toward his jeep, mind racing. A trafficking route? A storm evacuation gone wrong? His gut told him this wasn't chance. The silver bracelet, the careful wrapping, the proximity of the signal. It was all deliberate. Someone had wanted this baby found. By him? Or by anyone willing to follow the trail? The sound of gulls overhead broke the tension. Rex pressed against his leg, trembling faintly, not from fear, but anticipation. Jack looked down at him, then at the endless gray water beyond. "Looks like our quiet morning's over, partner," he muttered. He adjusted the baby in his arms, started walking back up the pier, and tapped his radio again, praying for a flicker of life. Behind him, the red light on the drifting boat flashed one final time. 3 blinks, slow and deliberate, before going dark completely. The sea kept its silence, but Jack knew, somewhere beyond the mist, someone was still watching. The Zodiac tore through the waves like a black arrow loosed by fate. Salt spray whipped across Jack Miller's face, stinging his eyes, but he didn't slow down. His gloved hands gripped the throttle tight, veins standing out like cords. He wore his Navy SEAL uniform, the sand-colored combat suit soaked to the bone. The emblem of the trident gleamed faintly on his chest, a mark that once filled him with pride, but now only reminded him of what he'd lost. 2 years since that operation in the Persian Gulf. 2 years since he'd dragged 3 men out of the fire and left his closest brother behind in the waves. Since then, he had lived by one rule: never hesitate when someone needs saving. Rex stood near the bow, paws planted wide for balance, ears pinned back against the wind. Water streamed down his black and tan coat, but his eyes, sharp amber, remained locked on the horizon like a compass needle. Every so often, he barked once, as if urging Jack to go faster. The boat sliced through the current until the outline of the suspicious speedboat emerged from the fog. Its engines were off. It bobbed quietly on the dark water like a corpse waiting to be found. Jack circled it once before cutting his engine. The silence that followed was eerie. Just the hiss of waves licking fiberglass. He climbed aboard, pistol drawn, flashlight cutting through the mist. The deck was empty, except for mud smears, a torn baby blanket, and a used milk bottle rolling gently with the boat's sway. Jack's stomach knotted. Someone had been here and left in a hurry. He crouched beside the bow, finding a scrap of lavender-scented silk snagged on the anchor cleat. He brought it to his nose, and the faint floral smell punched through the salt and oil. It was the same scent from Lily's blanket. "They were here," he muttered. Rex growled softly, nostrils flaring, hackles raised. The radio on Jack's vest crackled to life. "Miller, this is command. Terminate pursuit. Case now under DHS and county jurisdiction." The voice belonged to Lieutenant Briggs, Jack's commanding officer, a barrel-chested man in his late 40s, silver hair, cut high and tight, known for being by the book to a fault. Briggs had once been a SEAL himself, until a training explosion left him with a limp and a temper. He didn't trust improvisation. It reminded him of the chaos that took his leg. Jack clenched his jaw, looking out at the horizon. "Copy that," he said automatically, but his thumb didn't release the comm switch. His gut said the order was wrong. Too clean. Too soon. He glanced at Rex, who tilted his head as if sharing the same suspicion. A vibration in his pocket broke the moment. Jack fished out his secure phone, a model issued to active SEALs for field use. The screen showed an unknown number and a single text message. "Come alone if you want to know where the child's mother is." Attached was a set of coordinates, an old lighthouse on a sandbar miles from any public dock. Below that, an image file. Jack tapped it open. The picture was grainy, low light, taken indoors. A woman sat tied to a rusted pipe, head bowed, wrists bound. Even through the blur, Jack noticed the silver bracelet on her wrist, the same delicate pattern as Lily's. Her face was pale, bruised, but alive. Jack's heart stuttered. He exhaled slowly, forcing reason through the fog of adrenaline. If this was real, the baby's mother was still alive. If it was a trap, it didn't matter. He was going anyway. "Command, this is Miller," he said into the radio, his voice steady but cold. "I've recovered evidence suggesting the child's parent may still be alive. Requesting clearance to follow up." Briggs' reply was immediate and hard. "Negative, Miller. You're done. Return to base. That's an order." Jack's gaze hardened. He looked down at Rex, who stood silent now, eyes burning through the mist. "Guess it's just us again, buddy," Jack said softly. He switched the radio off. Within minutes, he was back on the Zodiac. The coordinates locked into his onboard GPS. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of rain and rust. The old lighthouse lay 10 nautical miles away, abandoned since the hurricanes of 2003, now a haunt for gulls and smugglers alike. As the Zodiac sped forward, the gray sky darkened, and the first drops of rain spattered Jack's face like cold warnings from the sea. Behind them, the ocean swallowed the drifting speedboat and its secrets. Ahead, lightning split the horizon in two. Rex stood like a statue on the prow, teeth bared against the storm. And for the first time in months, Jack felt something stir beneath the armor of his stoicism. Not fear, but purpose. He pushed the throttle harder, eyes fixed on the coordinates, glowing on the screen. Somewhere out there, a woman was waiting, or baiting him into something far worse. Either way, he was going to find out. The storm came like a living thing, tearing the sky open in streaks of white fire. Waves slammed against the rocks beneath the old lighthouse, sending sprays of salt over the pier where Jack Miller had moored his Zodiac. The wind howled through broken railings like the roar of ghosts. Jack's tan SEAL uniform clung to him, heavy with rain, while his face, angular and tired, was lit only by the weak glow of his flashlight. He moved with the caution of a man who had learned that death often hid in silence. Rex, dripping wet, padded beside him, paws silent against the slick boards, nose twitching. His fur was plastered to his ribs, but his eyes still burned bright with purpose. The lighthouse loomed ahead, a skeletal tower of rust and forgotten paint. Once, it had guided sailors through storms. Now it looked like it might collapse under its own memories. Jack slung his medical pack across his shoulder and nudged the door open. It groaned like an animal waking from a bad dream. The air inside reeked of rust, mold, and old seawater. The narrow hallway flickered under his flashlight beam, metal stairs winding up, puddles shimmering below. Rex stopped suddenly, nose close to the ground, tail low. He whined, then gave a sharp bark at a half-open door ahead. Jack approached, gun drawn, breathing slow and even. The door led into the engine room, filled with the stench of diesel and iron. There, against the far wall, slumped a woman. She was in her late 20s, maybe 30. Grace Evans, the woman from the photo. Her long brown hair hung in wet tangles, her face bruised but beautiful in that fragile, stubborn way of survivors. Her clothes, once white, were streaked with grime and salt. When Jack knelt beside her, she stirred, voice hoarse but determined. "My baby, Lily." Jack's jaw tightened. "She's safe," he said, wrapping her in his field jacket. "She's alive." Grace's eyes fluttered open, blue as a winter horizon. They used people," she whispered, each word a struggle. "Smugglers, hiding humans inside cargo. Storm hit. They split us up. I ran. Left a trail, wire, out the door." Jack glanced toward the corridor and saw it. A frayed electrical cable running from the wall, leading outside like a lifeline she had laid for rescue. Even half-conscious, she'd thought ahead. She was resourceful. A fighter. A low growl from Rex pulled Jack's attention downward. The dog's gaze was locked on the floorboards beneath them. Jack followed it and froze. Along the metal beams under the platform were bundles of C4, crude but deadly, connected by a tangle of wires. His flashlight found the timer. 12. Damn it! Jack's mind raced. They rigged the whole tower. He glanced at Grace. "Can you walk?" She nodded weakly. Jack hauled her up, her weight light but trembling. Rex barked once, sharp, impatient, then tugged at Jack's sleeve as if to say, "Move faster." They stumbled toward the door. The wind shrieked outside, blowing rain sideways. The lighthouse groaned under the pressure, each gust a warning. Halfway down the hall, Rex stopped again, body tense, ears pivoting toward the dark stairwell. A noise echoed faintly, metal scraping, like someone dragging a chain. Jack aimed his pistol into the dark. "Show yourself." Only silence replied. Then a low click, mechanical, deliberate. Rex lunged forward, teeth bared, barking wildly toward the sound. "Rex, no!" Jack shouted. But the dog ignored him, disappearing into the shadows beyond the doorway. Seconds later came the unmistakable clang of steel locking into place. The sound reverberated through the tower like a death knell. Jack spun, pulling Grace back against the wall. "Rex!" he yelled. No answer, only the rumble of thunder swallowing the name. He sprinted to the door, but the metal shutters had slammed shut, sealing the corridor. He pounded his fists against them, rain and sweat mixing on his face. "Rex!" he shouted again, but the only response was the echo of the storm. Grace clutched his sleeve, her voice barely a whisper. "They don't want anyone leaving." Jack turned toward her, determination cutting through fear. "Then they picked the wrong seal," he growled. Outside, lightning split the sky, and for an instant, the whole lighthouse burned white against the darkness, standing like a dying soldier who refused to fall. Somewhere beyond that locked steel door, Rex barked once, and then everything went silent. The metal groaned under the storm's assault as Jack Miller braced himself against the steel door, every muscle in his arms trembling with the strain. Grace Evans clung to his shoulders, shivering, her breathing shallow but steady. Her damp hair clung to his neck as he whispered, "Hold tight." The timer's digital pulse echoed faintly beneath them. 4 minutes of life, maybe less. Rain pounded through the cracks of the broken window, turning the narrow corridor into a funnel of cold water and wind. Jack's breath came in sharp bursts. He wasn't thinking about the pain in his arms or the salt burning his eyes, only the sound of the ticking. He swung the crowbar again, the metal shrieking in protest. And finally, the latch gave a small whine of surrender. A gap opened, barely a foot wide, but enough for a miracle. Rex appeared first, his dark shape bursting through the storm like a fragment of willpower itself. In his jaws, he carried the medical pack Jack had lost earlier. The dog dropped it at Jack's boots, tail wagging furiously, as if scolding him for being slow. Jack blinked through the rain. "Good boy. How the hell did you—" He didn't finish. Rex turned, growling low toward the shadows beyond the stairwell. Something, or someone, was moving up there. Jack ripped open the pack. Inside, wire cutters, a flare, a small mirror, and a rope coil, the kind used for high-angle rescues. "That's my guy," Jack muttered. He knelt, ear pressed to the metal flooring, tracing the faint hum of the detonator's circuit. 2 lines, 1 reel, 1 decoy. He exhaled. The seconds bled away. "Talk to me, Jack," Grace said weakly. "Tell me we're getting out." Her voice trembled, yet there was steel beneath it. The voice of a mother who'd already survived hell. Jack didn't answer. He was listening to the rhythm of the timer, waiting for the half-beat pulse that always marked the real circuit. "There," he whispered. He cut 1 wire, the sound barely a sigh. The red light blinked, then turned amber. 4 minutes left. Thunder split the sky, shaking the tower. Rex barked sharply and bolted toward the outer balcony, claws scraping metal. Jack followed, dragging Grace along. The dog was pulling at a rope line, teeth clamped on its end. Jack realized what Rex was doing, anchoring the line around the lighthouse's rusted light column, the way Jack had taught him during training drills. "You clever bastard," he breathed. With one final pull, the line went taut. He clipped Grace's harness and tightened the carabiner. When I say go, you slide. Don't look down. Don't stop. Grace nodded once, eyes wide, skin pale beneath streaks of rain. What about you? Jack smirked faintly. I'll be right behind you. That's a seal's promise. Grace hesitated, then whispered, Find my daughter. Her voice cracked on the word. Jack's throat tightened. I already did, and with that, he pushed her gently off the ledge. The rope hissed as she slid down toward the flooded dock below. Behind him came a clatter of boots. Jack spun. Out of the darkness emerged a tall man in a rain-soaked tactical coat, face obscured by a hood. The man moved with the calm precision of someone trained to kill. Lightning revealed his features for a heartbeat. Sharp nose, a scar cutting from his temple to his jaw, mid-40s, eyes pale and merciless. You shouldn't have come, the man said, voice smooth and chilling. You ruined a very profitable operation. Jack raised his pistol, rain dripping from the muzzle. You the one who sells people like cargo? The man smiled thinly. I prefer the term broker. He lifted a small drone from a case slung over his shoulder. Sleek, military grade, its underbelly fitted with explosives. One press, the man said, and a ferry full of tourists joins you in the afterlife. Jack's blood ran cold. He aimed, but the man was already moving, tossing the drone into the storm. Its rotors whirred, vanishing into the rain. Jack fired. Sparks, a grunt, but the man slipped into the shadows. Rex snarled and lunged, but Jack shouted, No! Too late. The drone's red light blinked in the distance, heading straight toward the lights of a passenger ferry struggling through the waves. The timer on the C4 blinked again. 01:22. Jack's chest tightened. He could go after the drone or stay to disarm the bomb. He couldn't do both. The sea screamed outside, lightning tearing the horizon. Rex stood between the two paths, ears pinned back, eyes locked on Jack, as if waiting for the command that would decide all their fates. The storm broke with a scream of wind and thunder. Jack Miller steadied his breathing, his soaked SEAL uniform clinging to every scar, every mark carved by war and the sea. The drone's red eye glowed faintly against the rain, darting toward the ferry, packed with terrified tourists. He knew he had no time left for hesitation. The choice was simple: save lives or chase vengeance. His hands moved faster than thought. He loaded a flare bolt into his tactical rifle, squinting against the downpour. The first shot veered off course, lost to the gale. The second fired with the calm of a soldier who'd faced death too many times, struck true. The steel wire coiled midair and caught the drone's arm, jerking it off balance. A heartbeat later, it plunged into the sea and exploded. A muted bloom of fire swallowed by waves. For a second, Jack could only breathe, the sound of rain merging with the relieved cry of distant sirens. Then he turned toward the tower. Inside, the countdown still blinked. 00:43. He sprinted back through the half-collapsed corridor, boots slamming the wet floor. Rex met him halfway, panting hard, fur soaked and streaked with mud. The dog barked once, sharp, urgent, then led him to the stairwell where the C4's core sat buried beneath steel plates. Jack dropped to his knees, ripped open the casing, and sliced through the final fuse. The timer froze at 00:07. He let out a shuddering breath. The sound of boots echoed from above. The Coast Guard team Rex had brought. Their leader, Commander Lewis, was a stocky man in his late 30s, with weathered skin and salt-streaked stubble, the kind of officer born of storms and command decks. "You must be Miller," he called, his voice booming even through the rain. "Heard your dog gave us quite a show." Jack managed a grin. He's better at giving orders than taking them. The men flooded the lighthouse, securing the broker, the scarred smuggler, who now lay sprawled at the foot of the stairs. Stripped of arrogance, his once cold eyes flickered with something close to fear. "You don't understand," he rasped. "This isn't just me. There are others." Jack stared down at him, jaw clenched. "Then I'll find them." He handed the man off to Lewis and turned to the stretcher where Grace Evans lay. Grace looked pale, but alive, wrapped in thermal blankets. Her hand trembled as she held out the small silver bracelet Jack had placed beside her. "Thank you," she whispered, voice barely audible over the rain, "for saving what's left of my world." Jack smiled faintly. "Your world's waiting for you." From the harbor, the ferry's horn sounded, a long, low note that carried through the night like a benediction. Grace's eyes filled with tears. Outside, Rex stood beside Jack, tail wagging, as the dawn began to break through the clouds. Weeks later, the sea had quieted. The Outer Banks gleamed gold under morning light, and gulls wheeled lazily above the docks. A small crowd gathered near the Coast Guard station. Uniforms, families, reporters. The air smelled of salt and diesel and something clean. Peace. Jack stood tall in his pressed SEAL uniform, but for once, he wasn't the focus. At his feet, Rex wore a small blue ribbon tied to his collar, a canine Medal of Valor gleaming beneath his chin. Commander Lewis presented it with a grin. for bravery, loyalty, and a complete disregard for orders, qualities we apparently reward now. The crowd laughed, clapping, as Rex barked proudly. Grace stood nearby, now healthy, her long brown hair loose and sunlit. In her arms, baby Lily squirmed, reaching toward the German shepherd. Rex bent down, sniffed her tiny hand, then gave it a gentle lick. Lily giggled, and Grace smiled, the first genuine smile she'd shown since the night at the lighthouse. Jack watched them from a few feet away, the sea breeze tugging at his sleeves. He didn't need medals. The sight before him was enough. Grace caught his gaze and mouthed, "Thank you." Jack nodded, resting his hand on Rex's head. The ribbon fluttered in the wind, a small, living flag of faith. Later, as the sun sank over the horizon, Jack sat on the pier beside Rex. The waves whispered against the pylons, soft as breath. He watched the horizon, where sea and sky melted into one endless blue, and smiled faintly. "You know, partner," he murmured, "if angels ever walk among us, they probably have paws." Rex leaned closer, resting his head on Jack's knee. The man and the dog sat there until the last light faded, guardians of a coast that would never forget them. Sometimes miracles don't arrive with thunder or trumpets. They come quietly, disguised as a loyal dog braving the storm, or as a soldier who refuses to give up when the world says it's too late. Jack and Rex's story reminds us that even in our darkest hour, God still works through courage, love, and loyalty, through ordinary hands that choose to do extraordinary good. Maybe your life doesn't have a lighthouse or a raging sea. Maybe your storms are quieter. Loneliness, loss, doubt. But remember this: the same God who calmed the ocean can calm your heart. And sometimes he sends help in the form of a friend, a stranger, or even a four-legged angel with muddy paws. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and comment below. Tell us about the miracles you've witnessed, those moments when love broke through the storm. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that celebrate faith, redemption, and the bond between humans and the creatures God sends to guide us. May the Lord bless you, protect your home, and light your path through every storm you face. God bless you all.